Like most of the Power Rangers fandom, I've seen and enjoyed Beasts Unleashed, the first episode of Power Rangers Beast Morphers. Needless to say, the Hasbro era is off to a good start, assuring fans that the brand is in good hands. What impresses me the most about this episode, though, isn't just that it's competently written, but it's actually a really good adaptation of its source material without being a complete remake like Samurai was. But before we dive in deeper, it's time for a transformation sequence. So, these videos are going to be a little different from what I usually do. I'm not going to do a full comparison of Gobusters and Beast Morphers because there's not enough to compare yet. So, after Beast Morphers has finished airing, I'll do a more comprehensive comparison. For now, I'm just going to watch episode by episode and comment on what changes from the Sentai work for me and which ones don't. I like Gobusters. It had an engaging story and characters, and did a good job of inverting Sentai tropes without being on the nose about it. When Gobusters was skipped to adapt Kyoryuger into Dino Charge, it was disappointing. It made sense from a business perspective. Kyoryuger toys had sold very well in Japan while Gobusters underperformed, and kids love dinosaurs. When Hasbro announced that they were adapting Gobusters into Beast Morphers, I was shocked and happy. So, how well does Beast Morphers adapt the source material? Right now, that's hard to say since there's only the first episode and it was all original footage. But even so, I felt that it captured the spirit of Gobusters very nicely. Our three leads are distinct but match up nicely with their Japanese counterparts. Red Buster Hiromu is a driven fighter determined to complete his mission, but he has no social skills and often has trouble interacting with others because he speaks too plainly. Devon also seems to have social issues from speaking his mind, but whereas Hiromu just doesn't always think about how his words can affect people on an emotional level, Devon is just really cocky. He can get away with being cocky because he's competent, but I imagine that even a lot of his friends really want to see him get taken down a peg. Ravi is also equally driven. He's also the only member of the team that was trained and supposed to be there. I get the feeling that we'll see him butt heads with Devon as Devon's cocky know-it-all attitude possibly endangers the team. Just like Ryuji was basically a big brother for his team, Ravi will probably end up being an emotional pillar of support for his teammates as they become acclimated with their new roles. The member of Beast Morphers who has the least in common with their Japanese counterpart is Zoe. Yoko, or Yellow Buster, was the only member of the team that was a teenager. She still had to study, and was insecure about how much younger she was than everyone else. She was passionate and driven, but had a hard time controlling her emotions. Zoe is very emotional and driven, but that's where the similarities end. Zoe has big dreams, but has to start from the bottom, in the laundry department. What exactly her technical background and qualifications are, we haven't learned yet, but I get the feeling that her biggest conflicts are going to be with Nate Silva. She's probably going to have some ideas about weapon designs or commercial uses for the Morphex that he shoots down because he's the head scientist. But then he learns to value her unique input or something like that. Jacqueline Skislowski is a very charismatic actress who managed to steal the screen whenever she was talking. She's easily my favorite of our three heroes, and I have a feeling she'll end up becoming one of the best Yellow Rangers of the franchise. At the end of the episode, we learn that Ravi is the son of the commander of the Grid Battle Force. With Devon being the son of the mayor, I wonder if a central theme of the series is going to be legacy and how a parent's well-intentioned expectations can fracture a relationship with their child. We don't know anything about Zoe's parents, but I suspect that part of her motivation to change the world comes from one of her parents. Family ties are a central part of Gobusters, and so it's not too surprising to see family playing a big part of Beast Morphers. In addition to the main cast, this series has possibly the best side characters that Power Rangers has ever produced. Our Bulk and Skull for this season are Ben and Betty Burke. They haven't done a lot yet, but they actually made me laugh, and while I didn't hate Victor and Monty from Ninja Steel, these two are a huge step up, and they might already be my favorite side character duo. I love Bulk and Skull, but Ben and Betty's enthusiastic incompetence just rubs me in all the right places. In addition to the characters, this series also made really good use of elements from the Japanese source material while still being its own unique thing. The MacGuffin of Gobusters is a clean energy source called Initron. In Gobusters, what it is and how it came to be is never explained, and it doesn't need to be. For Beast Morphers, this becomes an important plot point. I really like the idea of modern-day scientists harnessing the power of the morphing grid to create clean energy. If something like the morphing grid existed in the real world, that is exactly how humanity would react to it. It's an interesting spin on an element from the Sentai that uses the source material well, but is used in a way to make the adaptation more original, and that's awesome. I also like the villainous avatars of Blaze and Roxy. One of the challenges of adapting Gobusters is that the primary antagonists, Enter and Escape, are human-looking and don't wear a lot of makeup or costuming. This means that, unlike Tsui from Gal Ranger, you can't as easily hide the change in actors with clever editing. The form that Blaze takes is actually Enter's final form in Gobusters, and so I find it amusing that the final big bad of the Japanese series appears to be just a lackey in Beast Morphers. But that isn't the first time that's happened in Power Rangers. Roxy's avatar is a bit more interesting. The costume is Escape's final battle form, but they've changed the color scheme to gold in order to reflect how Roxy was supposed to be the Yellow Ranger, and matches her more with Blaze's evil Red Ranger form. I'm curious to see if they are going to be able to use any of the Japanese fight footage involving Escape, or if they're going to just have her change colors somehow. The only real negative comment I have about this episode is the villain. Evox has a cool design, but we don't learn anything about what he is or where he comes from, and he doesn't do anything other than create the evil Ranger avatars. This is a minor gripe, though. Beast Morphers was more interested in introducing and giving life to its main cast, which it did very well, and so it's not a surprise that the villain is a bit underdeveloped. I do hope he gets some much-needed screen time and more depth as the show goes on. In my recent video about different eras of Power Rangers, I mentioned how the Disney acquisition resulted in a lot of layoffs, with very few people such as Koichi Sakamoto surviving the transition. It seems that for this season, Hasbro's decided to use a lot of staff from the previous seasons. The lead writers for Beast Morphers are Becca Barnes and Alwyn Dale. Becca was a writer for Dino Charge and a lead writer for Ninja Steel. Alwyn was a writer for Ninja Steel and Dino Charge as well. In addition to writing this episode, Judd Lynn returns as an executive producer again. He is joined by Brian Casentini. Brian was a co-producer for Samurai and Megaforce. He was also an executive producer for Dino Charge and Ninja Steel. Oh, he was also a producer for the 2017 film. There's no guarantee that Hasbro won't slowly replace the creative team with their own people as the series goes on, but if all of Beast Morphers episodes are of the same quality as the premiere, then it's solid proof that the problem with the Neo Saban era was entirely the management and not the creative team. Which, considering that Saban was more than willing to replace half of the original cast so he wouldn't have to pay them what they were worth, I can buy it. So, like everyone else, I really enjoyed the season premiere of Beast Morphers, and I'm really curious to see what they'd come up with next. But overall, it's just really nice to be excited about Power Rangers again. That's all for now. Till next time, may the power protect you.